Hiya crafters, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I have a fun shaped card to share with you featuring a new stencil. Now I'm showing you some of the products that I'm going to be using. I have some ink pads from Catherine Pooler from the Party Collection, and this is the new Star Stretch stencil. This is a 6x6 and it's part of the May release at a Colorful Life Designs. Now here are a couple photos of the finished card. I don't often make shaped cards, but I always have the best intentions to do so. So I was really pleased when I actually finally created one today, and I love how it turned out with this new stencil. So here I'm just lining it up using my magnets over a panel. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I'm grabbing a couple cool colored ink colors from Catherine Pooler, and I'm just doing some very simple yet saturated ink blending, starting in the lower left corner of the panel and then moving upward, and I kind of fade out in one corner. So I'm using this dark blue, I think it's called Dress Blues, and then this teal color is called Uptown. And these are mini ink pads from Catherine Pooler in the Party Collection. So this is kind of a cool geometric star stretch design. This is one of many fabulous new stencils in the May release. So be sure to check out the rest. I will link everything in the video description box below. But if you shop, use my coupon AmyFan10 and you'll save 10% on your complete order. And then there's also something called a Master Creator Bundle. If you fall in love with the whole release, including the stamp set, then you can get the whole shebang for 20% off rather than 10% off. So you can't use my coupon on top of it, but you can get a bigger discount if you did want to get the entire release. So I will link that as well. If you use my link, it won't be any additional cost to you, but I will get a small commission for that. So I appreciate when you use my links. Now, removing the stencil, you can see this beautiful detailed design, but I do decide the white is a little bit too stark. It's a bit of a contrast. So I'm just lightly using some residual ink on my blending brush on the teal one and on the blue, just to kind of tone it down a little bit so it's not quite as dramatic. Now you can still obviously see the definition and the detail of that awesome stencil, but it's just not going to be quite as in your face. So that's just a way to kind of tone it down if you don't like that much of a contrast. Now here I have some infinity dies from Hero Arts. I'm going to use the biggest one to kind of take up as much of that card panel as I can, because I do want it to be relatively close to A2 size, because I am going to use an A2 size envelope. So I'm just going to cut this panel out. I'm going to use some mint tape just to kind of hold it down, and I will run it through my die cutting machine off screen. But first off, I grab a card base. This is A2 size, again 4 1/4 by 5.5. And the way that I'm making the shape card is that I'm kicking it off the edge so that the very edge of the die doesn't cut all the way through. You leave that gap so that you can keep the fold and keep the two sides of the card base together. So you can see here, I'm just going to remove the mint tape, but this is a way to kind of create a shape card without cutting all the way through and basically creating two pieces. You can still keep the fold of your card base just by moving the edge of your die off so that it won't cut through, because if it isn't connecting with the paper, then it won't cut all the way through. Now I am going to cut the entire oval shape of the card front, and then I will simply attach that to the card base. So you won't see the little bit where it's straight from the fold. You'll only see the full oval shape on the front of the card when I attach it. Here I'm showing you that it lines up perfectly, and then you won't see that little fold bit because the front card panel will mask that part of the design. So now I have it attached. I just use some tape runner to attach that to the front of the card. Now I decide to use a couple other ovals just to kind of continue that design shape, but also so that I can use that to use some of this new Happy Thoughts stamp set, which is also part of the release, to add one of these sentiments onto the front of my shaped card. So I'm figuring out which one is going to really fit that sending big love. Those are two separate stamps because you can customize it either with a sending big love or sending happy thoughts. But I'm using the one that's the smallest but can still fit that sentiment. And then I use one size up to cut an additional oval out of vellum. Now this is an optional step. It just gives it a little bit more of an interesting design feature. And then I'm going to cut the smaller oval out of some more white cardstock. I'll run that through off screen through my die cutting machine, and then I'm just going to stamp the sentiment right on the white oval to kind of complete the design here. So I'm going to get these two out, and I'm just going to line them up as straight as I can. Now you can absolutely do this in your MISTI. I probably should have, but I wanted to freehand stamp. I was just being a little bit lazy. So I'm using the grids on my glass mat just to line this up, and then I'm just kind of squishing these two together and then picking it up with my acrylic block. Now you can see I'm just conditioning the stamp with my finger. That's because it hasn't been used before, and sometimes you get a manufacturer's seal on your stamp when you first get it, and so it isn't as even of a stamp. So here I'm just doing a test stamp just to make sure that the lining looks, that they're lined up well and it looks well, and then I'm going to stamp it again right directly on this oval. So again, if you're nervous, go ahead and bust out a MISTI or a stamp positioner. Otherwise, it was just a little piece of cardstock, so if I messed it up, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. So here I'm just going to use some liquid glue real quick to attach it to this piece of vellum, and then I'm going to pop up the vellum with some foam tape just to kind of give it some dimension on the front of the card. So I'm just trying to line this up evenly so there's an even margin of that vellum all the way around. And then I have some foam tape. This is 1-inch foam tape that I get from scrapbook.com. It's my favorite sort of foam tape, and I'm just going to remove the backer and then slap that down on the front of the card, if I can ever get the backer off. It's not usually that troublesome, but I didn't cut it very evenly. My scissors were kind of struggling to cut through, so it made it a little difficult to get the backer off. Now here I have a box of blingage here. I have several little sparkle blends and things from the company Doodles Paper Playground, which sadly is no longer in business, but I did stock up when she was closing up her shop, and I have these cool starburst rhinestones, and I thought they went really well with the star theme on the stencil, and the color obviously is perfect as well. So there's kind of like a little mix of different teals and light blues and things like that, and these rhinestones have a really cool kind of star feature on the front of them. So here I'm figuring out what I want to do, and I decided to put some glue down in the inner portion of these stars just on the left side, and then kind of fading off to no blingage on the right side, kind of like where I faded off the color as well. I felt like it kind of continued that sort of design feature. So I'm just using my jewel picker and some liquid glue. Now I'm just testing to make sure that it will fit well within an A2 size envelope, just to show you the size of it. And that's going to finish the card. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. I often watch my friend Therese at Lost in Paper make these amazing shape cards. And I think I saw Lauren at TaylorMade do a shape card recently too. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to make a shape card. So I'm glad I did. And thank you so much for spending time with me. Be sure to check out the release, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.